Hi, and welcome to the Extra Serving Podcast, a production of Nation's Restaurant News. I'm your host, Holly Petre. Today we're going to be talking about Yum Brands. Yum recently announced the possibility of an acquisition or two this week. What does it mean that one of the biggest restaurant companies in the world is announcing the possibility of 1 to 2 more acquisitions? We will discuss. Next, we'll be talking about California's latest restaurant bill. The controversial bill was once part of the FAST Act, another controversial bill that's been delayed in California. This bill, which the International Franchise Association vehemently opposes, says that franchisees and the restaurant company will share responsibility if labor laws or standards are violated. Finally, we'll be talking about Crisp & Green. The fast casual brand seems to have catapulted into everyone's minds and is growing at record speed throughout the Midwest and has just opened its first of several New York City locations. Is this the next Crumbl Cookies? This week's guest is PK, CEO and co-founder of Balance Grill. Another Ohio brand for you, Sam. So now it's time to introduce my lovely co-hosts.
I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief of Nation's Restaurant News and proud resident of the state of Ohio.
I'm Leigh Zinsmeister, managing editor of Nation's Restaurant News, and I was born in the state of Ohio.
Holly, what you got?
I'm a proud New Yorker. What can I say?
Holly's been to Ohio.
I've been to Ohio.
Once. And at the time, I don't think you even knew where it was until the airplane landed.
All right, so before we get into this, I'm going to throw it to the sponsor, okay?
All right, throw it to the sponsor.
Stratus Foods is the industry partner you can depend on when you're looking for the very best in fats and oils. Our team of expert researchers, developers, and innovators have helped countless businesses just like yours bring their most delicious menus to life. With products that are reliable, sustainable, and ready to meet any challenge, you can fry, bake, saute, and grill with confidence. Stratus Foods, we've got you covered. Okay, so I've been to Ohio one time, and we discussed it when I was on the call with PK, that I've been to Ohio. Never been to Toledo, but he did give me an invitation. So if you want to fly me out there, I'd be happy to go to Toledo.
I'm gonna hold back my comments on Toledo. No offense, Toledo. I've not really spent much time in Toledo. Of course, Katie, my wife, is from south of Toledo, so I know that part of the state very well. I've actually not spent a lot of time. You know who we need on this podcast is we need Alicia Kelso to come on this podcast next week. Next week, she'll be on the podcast. Ask her opinion of Toledo because she grew up close to Toledo as well.
Interesting. I wonder what she'll say. I have no idea what she's going to say, honestly. And I know Alicia pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect either.
It's going to be a real whirlwind of a podcast next week when you're not here, Sam. Can't wait.
Sorry. Hate to miss it, but you know.
Schedules
and what have you.
It's my fault, but that's fine. I purposefully excluded you next week.
Thank you. This is your way of slowly kicking me off the podcast.
Yeah, and then I'm going to kick you off your own podcast, and then it's going to be great.
Take away with Holly Petre.
That has a nice ring to
it. Anyway.
So what are you guys doing this weekend? It's Friday. What are you guys going to do?
Is that what we're here for this podcast? Is that what? So what's up, guys? What's the hot goss?
I'm going down to DC to catch up with friends.
That's nice.
I think so.
You also just saw Taylor Swift.
I did see Taylor Swift. That was last weekend. It was marvelous. It's just as incredible as everybody says it is. I would say highly recommend, but if you don't already have tickets, I probably don't recommend the ticket getting process at this point. But I was lucky enough to have a friend who got me tickets like last fall. I mean, I paid him back, but you know, he went through the process for me.
That's too long ago. Going from buying tickets in the fall to then having a summer concert, it's too far.
That's how these tours work. And then came back to work and immediately was bombarded with questions by some of our colleagues who still haven't seen Taylor Swift, but are going later this summer. So I've just been reliving it perpetually ever since then. It's great. So now I'm going down to DC to avoid that like adrenaline crash after a big thing that you've been looking forward to, you know?
Yes.
It would be easy for me to be sad this week, but instead I'm going to go to DC and hang out with my buddies and do another happy thing.
Well, we're talking about a trampoline park. Inspired by Sam Oches himself and his trampoline in the backyard, my mother and I have been talking about going to a trampoline park.
Oh, it didn't actually happen.
It has not happened yet, but we are discussing it actively.
This is hypothetical.
I'm a little scared for my bones.
You probably should be.
It's also your muscles. It's my calf muscles that are the worst because the bouncing and what have you. But you know what? Enjoy yourself.
You know what? I will enjoy myself. Me and all the thousands of kids there will enjoy ourselves.
Yes, you will be the oldest person there by at least 10 years. 15
Hopefully
maybe.
more than 10 years. I hope 19-year-olds aren't going to.
Trampolines are universal though, you know. Well, and you're going to be in the midst of birthday parties. Like I've said before, I can't tell you how many birthday parties we go to at trampoline parks. And quite frankly, it's genius. It's a great birthday party idea. And that relates to what we usually talk about on this podcast because the entertainment space is coming up and it has trampolines as some of them and activities and what have you.
I saw on LinkedIn that this pickleball concept is coming to New York City, and Mayor Eric Adams was like at an opening for it or something. So I'm excited that pickleball is coming to New York City.
Where do you put a pickleball concept in New York City?
There are pickleball courts in Central Park.
Courts, but what about a pickleball concept?
No, there's like an entertainment concept. Yeah. I forget what it's called, like pickle or something. It had like a cute name, Eat Pickle.
We have entertainment here, Sam.
Where do you put? Impossible. What kind of real estate do you get in New York where you fit those kinds of things into it?
If we have an Olive Garden in New York, we have entertainment in New York.
I bet it's in like an old warehouse or something,
or it's in Chelsea Pier,
Brooklyn or Queens, Chelsea Piers. Yeah.
Well, because we've talked about
there's like a mini golf entertainment place in the Flatiron District, just right in the middle of the island.
So close-minded.
We've talked about, chicken and pickle on this podcast before. We've written about it before. And their facilities are 2 acres. 2 acres. You can't find 2 acres in New York City. That's all I'm saying.
Underground. The mini golf. No, I'm serious. The mini golf is underground. You go in, you go down a flight of stairs, and then it's just like the whole basement of like an office building. I mean, you've seen our office building, Sam.
Yeah, that still sounds depressing. I don't want to go into the underground of New York City to play mini golf.
Like a casino where there's no windows, artificial lighting, and you don't know what time of the day it is. You don't know what time you've gotten in, what time you've left.
Yeah, it's great.
Sounds really exciting.
I don't know. I went to this one mini golf place, and now I think I'm an expert.
Well, I think that one of our showdowns this year should be entertainment. Just putting it out there.
That's fine.
Sure, done.
It's your project, so knock yourself out.
Well, there's a lot of pictures of them too, so they're going to be great videos to make. So if you guys have an entertainment concept out there, email me or Sam, not Leanne because you can't get her email address right. I'm sure it's going to go somewhere else.
It's spelled the way it's pronounced, and it's pronounced the way it's spelled.
Doesn't
so email Samurai, and maybe Leanne if you want. About your entertainment concept, because we'd like to hear of up-and-coming ones too. We know the big ones, but maybe there are smaller up-and-coming ones that we don't know about. So feel free to email us. We are here, as always, at your disposal.
Good reporting.
Check mark for us.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about news.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I had another thought in my head, but I'm not going to say it out loud.
Please don't.
Good call.
Had to do with the Paul Rudd meme that I saw earlier today.
Continue, please.
So talking about Yum Brands.
Yeah.
I have no transition other than Yum Brands.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? Wow.
Yeah.
It's a little tiny brand. You've heard of that?
Resisting the urge to give you the finger.
All right, so Yum Brands recently announced that it may be making an acquisition or two, or that it's planning on making an acquisition or two, which is kind of big news. I mean, Yum Brands is one of the biggest companies in the world, restaurant companies in the world, to clarify. And making an acquisition or two is a pretty big deal. I mean, they acquired Habit Burger. How long ago was that? 2-3 years?
It was January of 2020.
So 3 years ago.
That will always
3.5 years ago.
stick in my head. Yeah.
That's pretty close. So that was they've made tech acquisitions since then, but a big restaurant acquisition would be a big deal for them. It depends if it's going to be something like maybe it could be a Subway. We have Subway up for grabs. I mean, it could be, there hasn't been a player for them so far. They haven't been announced as like a contending party, but they have the money. So I'd be interested to see if they go for Subway. Anyways, enough of my thoughts. What do you guys think?
I love how you just casually say they have the money. I mean, yes, it's a major company, but do you just have a cool $10 billion laying around? No, I don't think so. Yeah, I
I don't think
mean,
any of us do.
Yum, the greatest asset of Yum's is the power of the four brands, right? And so, another thing we can talk about is, they've been talking about AI and how AI is gonna, David Gibbs is saying AI is gonna change everything, and why that's relevant is because, you know, Yum has and can continue to acquire AI companies. Yum's scale is its greatest strength, I guess, what you could say, and that's true of operations and being able to go out and just buy a tech company that's going to help you, and it's true of being able to impact the American consumer and change the way people eat, and obviously it can help them as they have shared resources across the brands and all of that good stuff, which is all coming back around to the brand acquisition piece of it. The bigger they get, the more scale they have. They can become even more powerful, and we see this model working with Inspire. Inspire hasn't acquired a brand now in a little while. They, I don't know, settled out into their 5 or 6 brands or whatever they have, and same thing. They have this power of scale to be able to accomplish far more than they could do as the individual pieces. And now Yum has been on that track, and I think wants to continue to go on that. It's funny you mentioned Subway, because in a weird way it does kind of make sense. I don't think it will happen, of course, but yeah, you want to round out your portfolio with a complementary brand that is still, I'm sure they're going to still look for something that's more QSR oriented, because that's their bread and butter, but something that is not pizza, tacos, chicken, or burgers. So where do you go? Sandwich could be
Something
one.
that's interesting about these companies. I saw you open your mouth, Leon, but sorry.
Saw you opening your mouth, so I immediately started talking. Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking as Sam was talking about that, what's interesting about these companies like Yum, like Inspire, is that they also shift around their staff. So you have this enormous amount of this pool of people that are coming up through the ranks that know the brands that you can then shift around. Like I'm thinking of that big Inspire shift up that we talked about a few weeks ago, where Rita Patel went to a different brand, and I think she went to Arby's, and then somebody else filled in for Buffalo Wild Wings, and somebody went to Jimmy John's, and it's just like talking about how all these brands are converging to become one, but they also maintain their separate brand identities. And I think that's really interesting as brands are acquired, and we've seen that with Habit Burger as part of Yum.
Yeah, that's definitely one advantage to these big restaurant companies. And another thing that I think Yum does really well is like kind of like with its people, but like with like testing new ideas and new products. Like we just saw their big sustainability push company wide incorporates things that they've been testing at each of the different brands individually. Well, like we did this thing at a handful of Taco Bells, and it's working really well. So now we're going to do it at every KFC. So you don't have to do as many like individual rollouts and tests at different brands. I was also going to say, I'm curious to see if they keep moving more into the fast casual space. Of course, like Sam said, QSR is really what Yum Brands does, but they did acquire Habit Burger a couple years ago, a fast casual brand, and then have kind of been, I was going to try to make QSR into a verb, but I don't know if I can do that gracefully. But they've been, adding drive-thrus and taking the things that they do really well and doing it at Habit, and it's been working. So I'd be curious to see if they move more in that direction and start acquiring more like smaller fast casual brands. Not that Habit is small, but, smaller than Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut. And I'm also curious, Sam talked about Inspire, and Inspire has Buffalo Wild Wings, which is obviously casual dining, but like more on the casual side of the spectrum. And so I wonder if there's like space for that in a Yum Brands company. I don't know. It also, like the way David Gibbs was talking about this made it sound like it was still like probably at least a year out. But I think it's going to be really fun to speculate for a while.
It's always fun to speculate.
But I'm not going to go so bold as to name one of the biggest restaurant companies in the world and say that maybe they'll buy it.
Well, and you have to admire his strategy here, because you got to imagine there's going to be jockeying from brands to get his attention, right? To say, I think we'll acquire some brands. Well, every company in America just perked up, and they're like, maybe that could be me. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. We've seen, by the way, a lot of brand deals go wrong, or a lot of instances where there wasn't a fit. I mean, Yum's history itself, they had A&W and Long John Silver's once upon a time, and they spun off that business. Or if you look at something like Buffalo Wild Wings acquired Rusty Taco, then got acquired by Inspire, and then Inspire kicked off Rusty Taco, right? I mean, there are instances where brands are not a good fit for a portfolio, and so clearly a company like Yum making an acquisition, they're going to be doing a lot of due diligence on finding that right company, so which is why it could take 5 years.
Bringing it back to what we were kind of just talking about is that I wonder if it might be an entertainment concept. They're casual dining. They're really hot right now. And I feel they're only going to get hotter because they've been growing for years. We had Punch Bowl Social come out maybe 10 years ago, and I feel like they've only been growing in popularity. And I wonder if that's going to be something they go for, or I could even see them going for like a True Food Kitchen. I'm going to throw brands out there.
I would be skeptical of entertainment solely because I don't think it is a mature enough category, and they will not, they're not going to go acquire a poke brand. You know what I mean? Like they want something that's mature. They want something that's going to be established around for a while. Now, healthy food, that space, certainly that's interesting. But again, it's going to have to be complementary to the rest of their business, which a healthy food business would be, because they don't have that currently in their portfolio.
But they have a delicious portfolio.
We all know your love for Taco Bell, Holly.
I do. I love Taco Bell, so I crave it. I haven't had it in a while though, but I do crave it. So let's move on. Because I could talk about Taco Bell all day, as we all know. They still have not sponsored me. I don't understand it. I've asked them in person to sponsor me too, and they just won't do it. I don't really understand it.
I'm so surprised.
You know what? You should be surprised, Sam.
Let's go. Come on. What's our next subject? Tell us. Throw it at us.
Throw it at you?
Yes.
I got a pretty good right hook, so I could throw it at you. So we're going to be talking about California. Woohoo! Right?
Sure.
Can you find it on a map?
Yeah, I can find California on a map. It's pretty damn easy.
Yeah, Sam, what do you think she is, stupid? You think she can't pick out states on a map?
Why do you think it's better than Ohio?
I've never been to California, so I don't actually know. But I've been to Ohio.
You've never been to California?
No.
Wow.
You didn't know that?
No.
But I've been to Ohio, so check one for Ohio.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about California and their latest bill. They are pretty controversial over in California. They're signing all kinds of bills that are going through, and then they're having to get all this legal stuff done, and it's very complicated. We've talked about the FAST Act before. So this new bill was part of the FAST Act initially, but got taken out before it went to Governor Gavin Newsom's desk, but he then signed. So this bill is all about franchisees and franchisors and their relationship to each other when it comes to violations of labor laws. And so that's super interesting because we're talking about the fact that franchisees and franchisors are going to be jointly responsible for labor violations. So think about all those instances of child labor law violations that we've seen recently, and there have been a lot. The franchisor would also become responsible. So the International Franchise Association is up in arms about this. They're not happy at all. They think that it's going to put a lot more pressure on the franchisees and a lot more rules and limitations on them. But I mean, Stan, we were talking before the call that you think that it would be good for franchisees. They'd have a joint responsibility to share. I mean, I won't speak for you. You'll speak for yourself. But I mean, I think that's an interesting point to bring up.
No, Sam. Please speak for me. No, yeah, I mean, that was my first reaction, was that a franchisee, one positive spin on it is that a franchisee would have the, franchisor, I don't want to say equally culpable, but essentially if you have the franchisor having to get your back because their interests are also at stake, that could become a good thing for the franchisee. But no, I don't think at the end of the day that's going to win over their opinion on this. I think all around, International Franchise Association has come out against it. Franchisees are not happy. Franchisors are not happy. And I mean, if we rewind and, take a step back, not surprising that California is doing this. California is obviously a state that has a lot of regulation on business, and I think with this one, they're trying to ensure that I think too often the franchisors try to pass off the responsibility on the franchisee, and it tends to be the franchisee. Franchisees' operations are informed by the franchisor, and so often, if a franchisee is culpable of doing something wrong, then there's a lot of likelihood that the franchisor is somehow responsible for that too. But the franchisor will tap out. They don't want to get tied up in something like that, and that's what this seems to be trying to solve for. But so in that way, that's why I thought maybe franchisees would appreciate it. But at the end of the day, I think we could all agree that just do the right thing. Don't do anything to get yourself in trouble as a franchisee. Franchisors are going to be more engaged in ensuring their franchisees are doing the right thing. I think that's probably especially why they're not interested in this, is because there's going to have to be a lot more investment in protecting themselves and ensuring that their franchisees are doing the right thing. Now, again, in California, I don't know. Not to say everybody is great in California. It's just to say it's like, if you've already got an existing franchise in California, especially for some of these bigger brands, they're probably a fairly sizable operation, a fairly ingrained operation, and so hopefully you don't have too much to worry about. But as you're recruiting new franchisees, there's going to be a lot more that you have to go through as far as training, as far as systems and those kinds of things to make sure that down the road you're not going to get in trouble if they're doing something wrong.
I'm letting you speak this time, Leigh, and I'm not going to interrupt you, I promise.
I actually don't have much to say on this subject. I'm not as well versed in the franchise laws as some of our other colleagues. But Joanna Fantozzi did a great job on this story, and I'm always eager to watch these kinds of things unfold in California, because we've said it before, we'll say it again, like whatever California is doing, especially in the restaurant space, is like what all the other states are gonna do. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bill like this here in New York in the next 6 months. So for me, it paints a picture of where like the industry could be going. So I'm eager to watch it, but I don't know enough about the topic to say much more than that.
I feel like California, then it moves to New York, then it moves to DC, is how I feel like that's usually the trajectory of laws that happen. But I know the FAST Act was built to be a framework for other states to pick it up instantly. And so the fact that this was part of the FAST Act makes me think that this is also a framework for other states to take it up and do the exact same thing. And I wonder if the fact that the International Franchise Association is so staunchly against it, that's going to factor in people's minds when it comes to voting or getting this legislation up, because the restaurant industry is strong. It's not a quiet industry, and it's big. So I wonder exactly how far this bill is going to get, because we know the FAST Act is going to a vote. The FAST Act had so much backlash against it that it has to go to a vote in 2024. So it's interesting to see these pieces of legislation come through, California signing them, but then there's all this backlash against them, and so they may be signed, they may be possibly in law, but then they have to get all of this stuff approved because people are signing petitions, people are coming out against it, there's new organizations that are formed to fight it. So I find that really interesting that California is acting as this authority on the restaurant industry. Really, it's really put its foot down on the restaurant industry more than I think a lot of other industries, because they had that controversial delivery bill for a while. So it's interesting to think about California as kind of stomping on restaurants, and restaurants are fighting back.
Strong language, but yeah, I mean, look, the restaurant industry is the most visible industry, right? When it comes to business, this is the most universal of all the industries. I think a lot of this stuff tends to be symbolic. I'm not a politician, but politicians also introduce bills they know will die because they're trying to make a statement, they're trying to build momentum, they're trying to create a cause, and this could be one of those things. I believe the FAST Act is kind of one of those things as well, which is we're all talking about it still, how what, a year after it was introduced or whatever, and it's also, you get out there, you propose a legislation, you see what the feedback is, you collect data on that, right? You find out who's opposed, who's supportive, what does the public think? Is this worth our time? I don't know if that's the case here, but I guess I look at this all cynically just to say that, California has a history of doing this stuff. This is, pretty in line with all the other things they do. Whether or not it becomes law, who knows? But if it does become law, yes, there are other states that tend to fall in line with what California is doing. And I think if nothing else, they just want to try to get people's attention to signify that this is a thing that they think should be a issue going forward.
Who's to say? We will all wait and see. All right, so let's talk about Crisp and Green.
I'm glad we don't have a regulation podcast, by the way, a public policy podcast. Hope everybody just skipped over 3 minutes of their lives. Anyway, go on.
I think I had some insightful things to say. They can skip over your part, Sam.
Okay.
So let's talk about Crisp and Green. This Midwestern brand is franchising like mad. You've spoken with Steele. I've spoken with Steele, the founder, Steele Smiley. A very interesting brand. They're growing like wildfire. I mean, I feel like it's accurate to say wildfire. I mean, they're growing almost the same way that Crumbl Cookies grew. And so that's why I compared them, when I first started out, because Crumbl Cookies grew exponentially in just a few years, and now they're everywhere. I mean, I see them everywhere in New York City, which is shocking because they weren't there for a while. And now Crisp and Green is also in New York City, one of the toughest markets. I know you hate that I bring up New York City, Sam, so I see your face grimacing.
We've got enough Ohio talk in. I'm good. We got to balance it.
So, but they've come. I can't wait to try them in New York City. I'm very excited by this brand because it's growing so quickly, and I don't know if the growth is sustainable. I guess that's something that we'll talk about, but it's growing really quickly, and it has all these franchise deals, and they want to grow even quicker. They want to just become this giant organization that has 1,000 units. And so I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this trajectory.
One thing I push back on with the Crumbl comparison is that they do not have these restaurants open. Crumbl has been opening locations like wildfire, whereas Crisp and Green has built a pipeline. And that's no disrespect to Crisp and Green or to say it's not going to be a success, but there is a big difference between quickly opening hundreds of restaurants, as Crumbl has 706 years or whatever it is, and saying we have 1,000 restaurants in the pipeline. I'm fuzzy on the numbers that Crisp and Green officially has open. I want to say it's 50-ish open. So I'll say this in two ways. I say the first thing is I think it seems like a really cool concept. I've not personally been there. Haven't been around one before, but I think there is a lot of opportunity for healthy, fast casual to spread across the country. We see a number of others obviously playing in that space, Sweet Green, of course. We've all been talking a lot about Salad and Go the last couple of weeks. You'll find out why here in a couple of weeks, but Salad and Go likewise, I think more than doubled their footprint in 2022. Of course, they have Charlie Morrison at the helm now, so they're growing a lot as well. Anyway, point is there's a lot of demand for healthy, quick service and fast casual food these days. And especially if you're franchising, that's a quick way to get a franchisee's attention. This is on trend. If you've already filled your portfolio with the other categories, this is something new and fresh. And there's a ton of white space. You can grow pretty much anywhere, and the demand is only going up for healthy, fresh food. So that's this part of it. The other part of it is that I've been in this business for 14 years, and I always am cynical toward people who say we have hundreds of stores in our pipeline, because I cannot tell you how many of them, probably nearly all of them, never fulfill those. And it's not to say Crisp and Green won't. I just to emphasize, I think this is a great brand, but it's just to say be careful of chasing a brand that has stores in the pipeline. One thing that I can say with certainty is that nobody is building at the pace that they want to be right now, because that's the one area of the supply chain that's still pretty tied up. Construction materials. Everybody we just talked to at the NRA show is frustrated with their pace of growth. They all say, oh, I opened 10, I could have opened 30. So let's just say that these 1,000 stores could happen. You could have a 15-year runway before those 1,000 stores happen. And what tends to happen for franchisees is if it's going slower than you want, you might get out of that deal, or it just might fall apart. It's just all to say is like, be speculative of any brand that says we're going to open 1,000 restaurants. They have to put their money where their mouth is. I look forward to seeing if Crisp and Green can do that, and I hope that they can. I just also know that everybody gets stars in their eyes. And I can't tell you how many, but look, I can think of some right now, brands that said we're going to have 500 locations and they have 0 today. that is the thing that happens. So it's not the number you're chasing, right? It's the quality of the business. It's the unit economics. Like, that has to be first and foremost. Who cares if you get to 1,000 or 100? Just have healthy restaurants, okay? Anyway, I'll let Leigh talk.
I think the biggest test right now for Crisp and Green is this expansion into New York City. Because like Sam said, yeah, this is a really like trendy segment right now. But what that means is that New York City, especially, but lots of big cities are oversaturated with salad concepts right now. I mean, if I want a salad at lunchtime and I'm at the office, I can walk to Chopped, I can walk to Sweet Green, I can practically like roll into just salad without leaving my desk. Like they're everywhere. And so what's really important here is going to be brand differentiation. And for example, like Salad and Go is differentiating itself by literally just being an off-premises only salad concept. And up until now, I think Crisp and Green, the reason we were talking about it so much was like, because yeah, it was growing, but it was also growing primarily in the Midwest, which is not where these brands tend to start. Now, Sweet Green is in the Midwest now. But these salad concepts tend to start on the coasts and then work their way in, and Crisp and Green is taking the opposite approach. So I think the next 6 months to a year are going to be critical to see how these New York City stores perform. And also just anecdotally living in New York City, like you so frequently see restaurants open up storefronts and then almost immediately shutter. So I hope that's not what happens here, but it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on it. And to see what kind of crowds they're attracting, or if people are just like, oh, more salads. Like, I already have a salad spot, or I'm sick of salads, I think are things that New Yorkers think a lot. So who knows? Maybe they are standing out in some way, but I think that would be my biggest concern. But I also understand, coming into New York City is a huge, huge goal for so many restaurant brands. And just to be able to say, even if you have one unit in New York City, I mean, Raising Cane's just opened or is about to open in New York City. And it's like, a big deal. So I can understand wanting to be here and I hope they're successful. But I think that's my biggest question mark right now.
I can't wait to try Raising Cane's.
I've never been to Raising Cane's.
There were none in New York.
I'm less surprised about that one, honestly. I hadn't been to Raising Cane's until a year ago.
That's true. Actually, neither had I, but it's just like,
fun
Holly. To make fun of Holly.
It's fun to make fun of Holly.
They're opening up 2 in New York City, and one of them is near where I live, so I'm very excited about that.
Well, if the success
of by the office,
if the success of Chick-fil-A is any indication, they're gonna kill it. So
yeah. Well, we have a Blue Ribbon Chicken in New York City downtown, and it's packed at all times of the day, all times of the night. It is packed. And so I think that New Yorkers really love chicken.
Go figure.
A really broad statement, but I feel like fried chicken, I feel like New Yorkers really like fried chicken.
Hang on. You're telling me the biggest city in America likes the most popular protein in America? What?
I know, shocking, right?
You heard it
I'm
here
really
first.
giving you new information.
Hi, babe.
All right, I'm going to wrap this thing up, guys. I'm hot. It's a really hot day here in New York. I'm going to wrap this up.
We should never do this on Friday afternoon ever again.
Amen.
All right, well, I'm going to throw it over to myself and PK from Balance Grill.
Cute.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for joining me today.
Thanks, Holly.
Stratus Foods is the industry partner you can depend on when you're looking for the very best in fats and oils. Our team of expert researchers, developers, and innovators have helped countless businesses just like yours bring their most delicious menus to life. With products that are reliable, sustainable, and ready to meet any challenge, you can fry, bake, saute, and grill with confidence. Stratus Foods, we've got you covered. So, PK, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
Tell me a little bit about Balance Grill.
So Balance Grill is a fast casual Asian fusion restaurant. We're very much focused on the Asian American diet or the Asian diet versus the standard American diet. So we really put veggies front and forward. And we serve bowls, tacos, snacks, and a drink called bubble tea, which I think by now in 2023, everybody has heard of.
I think bubble tea has become ubiquitous. I think it's past the point of being something that you only see at certain restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely. It's moved its way out of Chinatown and is much more kind of in its prime.
Yes. So how do you guys think about your menu? You're a co-founder of this brand. How
I
do you guys
am.
think about the menu?
Well, I'm not the menu guy. I am more the background guy. But what I do is I pull a lot of data about what moves on our menu, and we've been doing this really since we got started in 2010. This relationship I have with my business partner, who is really culinarily talented. He's kind of a genius in that way. He's not here right now, so I feel like I can say that. But he does a great job. He loves to be challenged, and so we have this dynamic where a couple times a year, several times a year, I'll pull data on how menu items trend over a period of time and what we see correlation with, and then he'll take those few kind of muses and he comes up with new menu items and our customers love it because there's always something new. There's always something for me to put out there through our marketing channels, and there's always a new challenge for him.
But the data is so important when it comes to menu trends because you want to stay on trend with what's happening in the world and even ahead of the trends. But it's important
Yes.
to get all that data. It's a very important key element. So don't sell yourself short.
Well, I think it's really important that, we have as many channels for listening to our customers as we can. And that's really what it comes down to is how focused in can you be year after year on what it is your customers want and how closely can you meet those expectations.
So now there are a few Asian concepts that are kind of popping up out of Ohio where you guys are based. I've seen
Mhm.
a few recently, not too many, but a decent amount for Ohio, which I think people would consider is not exactly the Asian capital of America. So how do you feel you fit in that area?
Well, I think for one, being in the Midwest, being in kind of, not one of the, if you'd use the term top tier markets, more diverse markets, is you get very much you get a new level of awareness of what the general public will accept and how they want to be interacting with kind of our cuisines, things that we grew up with. You have a better idea of what's going to fly and what's not. And one of the things that I think we found out really early on, partially because of just how we're set up. My business partner is Korean. He comes from a restaurant background where they serve Chinese food. I'm Indian American. And so we have a lot of connection there, but we've always had this really diverse menu. And the way that we've brought it to market, brought it to our customers, is very Midwestern. So we kind of meet everybody with where they're at. And we take this Pan-Asian approach where we've got cuisine from Korea all the way down to India and everything in between. And we transform it into this format that I think people are very comfortable with, right? So like bowls, tacos, and finger food snacks. I think everyone is very much accustomed to that form factor. And so just the ability to draw from all these different really unique cuisines as inspiration, but then transform it into something that is approachable.
Yeah, I find that really interesting that you use the word approachable for Pan-Asian cuisine, which can sometimes be scary to customers in the Midwest. I am generalizing because I am an East Coaster. So as my boss always says, I hate the flyover states, but I think that it's important to really talk about this approachability because you guys just expanded to Texas. You have this big deal out in
Mhm.
Texas, and that's certainly not the Asian capital of the states by any means. It's a lot of Mexican food, Tex-Mex, and so I think that it's really interesting to use the word approachable because you need to be approachable with these cuisines that can sometimes scare people.
Yeah, I think it is more than just flavors and unique ingredients that people aren't accustomed to. It's also preparation methods, it's textures. Texture is like such an important thing in Asian cuisine, and then bringing that to kind of just the general public. Being approachable, I think, is so critical because our job in the industry is to serve our customers the best way we can. It's not to um, necessarily like move them outside of their comfort zone.
Now, I'm very curious, how do your Indian items sell compared to like Chinese or Japanese or any other Korean aspects on the menu? Because I find that Indian food has more of a reputation.
It does, and you went right for the juggler with that. That is like it's a thing. CJ and I will kind of compete on. I'm always pushing to put more Indian stuff on the menu. I think there's so much there. And he's obviously pushing for more Korean cuisine. And they are kind of on the opposite spectrums. I feel like some foods, Chinese food has been in America now, like what, 4, 5, 6 generations, a really long time, especially in New York. You said you're in New York, right? So that's been there for a long time. But when you get down to like Indian, Thai, Korean, uh, Indonesian, Malaysian, Filipino, these are very kind of emerging. So it is interesting, and it does vary by market. So I'll tell you, like in Toledo, it's a little bit different than Cleveland, different than Denver, and probably be different in Dallas when we get down there. I'm hoping, since you said that there's such a proliferation of Latin American foods, Mexican foods, Tex-Mex down in Texas, our Indian items are going to take off a little more.
I think they might because they're not afraid of spice down there. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
something that maybe some people are a little afraid of when it comes to Indian food is the spice factor. I personally, Indian food is my favorite kind of food. So you have me as a customer whenever you come to New York. But I find that it's very interesting because they're used to spice down there. They like spice. And I feel like that might be a more approachable aspect for them rather than the Chinese or Korean aspect.
Yeah, I think spice and Indian food, Mexican foods are a little bit different. You know, well-spiced foods just means kind of like a well-rounded flavor. It's not necessarily a heat
Heat level,
intensity
yeah.
index, you know. But you have to love your food seasoned. So
And I feel that in Texas, they do like their food seasoned. They do barbecue very well. They do a lot of things very well. So I feel like
yeah.
seasoning is very important. But I know for a lot of white customers, seasoning can be a little difficult to bring to them. I mean, how do you kind of tackle that as an approachable brand?
Well, I'll tell you, like our customers, they do seek us out, right? So I think they want to test their limits to an extent. I mean, we have this sauce called Bang Bang sauce. It's CJ's favorite sauce. It's crazy hot. It's crazy, crazy, crazy hot. But we make it in store, we sell it. It's like our most popular thing. People take it home, they cook with it all the time. They turn it into marinades and add it to scrambled eggs. And um, it's okay to be hot. You've got to, I'm going to say it, you've got to be balanced with it. I totally know that's a pun. But it's true, right? Like, you can't just have raw heat for it to be appreciated. It has to be this kind of, you have to have your salty, your umami, you know, your a little bit of acidity with it. You have to bring it in a balanced way. And I think it succeeds then.
That's perfect. And that's such a great way to look at it, is this holistic way of looking at spice. And I feel that a lot of people don't do that. So it's really nice to hear that you guys are quote unquote balanced. So it's nice to hear that from somebody because people do enjoy flavor, they enjoy spice, but sometimes it could just be a little too much for them. So it's nice to hear that you guys have like a really good balance. So you talked a
Absolutely.
little bit about Texas. Tell me about this new Texas expansion. It sounds really exciting.
It is super exciting. So we've got a list of about 10 markets that we want to go into over the next 5 to 7 years. And so we've been seeking out franchise partners, growth partners in these specific markets. And we were lucky enough to meet Rashawn, who's our franchisee down in Dallas, and he is an absolute he's a beast. He's done an amazing job with a couple other brands and is been very successful with them. So we're excited to be working with him to bring balance to the market. He tried balance for the first time probably like 5, 6 years ago. Traveling through Toledo, traveling through Cleveland and stuff, got hooked to it, and we've maintained a great relationship since. And so I know he's excited to bring the menu down there and very confident it's going to be received very well.
It's always nice when a customer becomes more than a customer, when they become so involved with the brand that they want to franchise it. I mean, it's a pat on your back for sure.
It's an amazing honor, right? And then to also, I think one of the beauties of this industry, I actually come from technology. I never had a job in a restaurant before owning, co-founding Balance. And the beauty of the industry is you just meet so many people and you find these connections with people and you do it over food. And then when you can find people that you can work with on multiple different levels, whether it be an employee or a vendor or franchisee, it's just so rewarding.
I see why you're so logical now. You're very measured and logical in what you say. I'm very impressed. It seems like you have a good background for this, though. I mean, it's super important to have the business side and to know exactly what you're doing when it comes to the business, even if you weren't in the restaurant business before, which it's very tough to be in the restaurant business. Trust me, I've spoken to enough people that I know it's a really, really hard job. But I mean, it's good to have that sort of like focused linear thinking when it comes to restaurant business because you need it. You have the creative side, but you need the business side.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about having partners, because yes, you need it, and it has to be measured because you can't have the creativity without the emotion. And like I said earlier, I don't have those skills. I don't have the skill of being an amazing chef like my business partner does, but he takes things, he's very emotional with it. And I think it comes part and parcel with that, left brain, right brain thing. And I don't think things that emotionally. And so, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I run these data numbers and I just tell him where the correlations are. And sometimes he takes it personally, that certain items are not, trending in a great way. And that's okay. It's okay to have the emotion. You have to have a little bit of it all.
You guys sound like a really good partnership. How do you guys get along?
Oh, great. He's he's my best friend. He has continued to be. He's my wife's best friend as well. And I mean, he lived in my house through COVID. Lived in my basement for like 2.5 years. He's great.
That's a true partnership. That's really incredible.
With. Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, it's the best part of my job. I get to wake up every day and go to work with my best friend, and I really enjoy everybody else that we work around. I mean, we have a great team.
It's so nice to hear. I love when people love their teams. It's just like heartwarming to me because it's a tough business. And so when people are so passionate about their teams and their partners, and it's like puts a smile on your face.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it right. It is a tough business. And you do this business because you love it. You love to serve other people. You love to meet people. You love the relationships that you build over time. But there's a lot of hours and it can be really stressful. So when you find that right team that just like gels, that you love going to work, and even if it's going to be a 60, 70 plus hour week, just is what it is. I mean, you don't always feel like you're at work because you're around people that you enjoy.
Now, you said that your new franchisee has franchised other businesses before, correct?
Yeah.
So he's used to the business. So he knew what would sell, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that we look for whenever we are qualifying someone for a franchise opportunity is they have to be multi-unit, they have to be multi-branded, they have to know what it is that they're building out, and have to come into the brand and elevate it from the level at which we are at. And I think, that's why we say we're looking for franchise partners. They're more like value-added investors.
Well, and they are true partners. It's a partnership in a way that you don't always expect it to be. I think it becomes more of a partnership as time moves on and you really get to learn each other and learn each other's ways. And it's a balance. Not to use the word again.
I see what you did there. I love it. Way to bring it back around.
Always. So where did the name come from? I'm so curious.
Yeah, it came from really wanting to create macronutrient focused fast food. So creating a more balanced approach to fast food. And we found that in our Asian roots, in our background, the way that we approach food, everything from, being open to whatever's in season, all the way to really we're focused on produce as the core of our menu, not starch, not proteins, definitely not dairy. And those things do create a better balance when you eat it. It creates a better balance, I think, in society. It solves so many, causal issues all the way back through supply chain to ecology and just general what we do as restaurateurs and build community around our businesses.
I love hearing that you are appreciating the elements of the business that can sometimes be a little difficult to handle, like sustainability, like supply chain. And it's nice to hear somebody who's actively tackling that.
Yeah, we are. Even on the produce side, I mean, we live in Ohio. We realized this pretty early on, but we live in Ohio and we're not going to be able to get local produce year round. So we actually built an urban farm that's located in downtown Toledo, right next to our downtown Toledo restaurant. It's like a 9,000 square foot urban aquaponics facility, and we don't grow all of our ingredients by far. But there are several SKUs that we grow, depending on season, 100% of, or sometimes we back off when other local produce is available. And we're able to control at least that part of our supply chain.
And that's a benefit to being in the Midwest, and will probably be a benefit as you go to Texas, that there's a lot of space to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of urban space to repurpose.
Yes. And repurpose for a garden, which is like the most beautiful repurpose of anything and that I think in the world, is to repurpose an empty lot or something that's been condemned or something and make it into a garden. Like, there's nothing better.
Absolutely.
And so what was the inspiration for the garden? I mean, that's a big investment.
It is. But everything we're doing is it takes a good investment, right? We wanted to really show show our commitment on another level and just elevate our tie into the community. One of the great things about the farm is it's not just for us. We grow around 50% of the product for us. The rest of it, we're in a number of other restaurants, dozens of other local restaurants, all the way up to Detroit, out to Cleveland. We're in grocery stores. We're in traditional supply chain produce distributors to Cisco, kind of everywhere. And when you do that, you realize how much of an impact you can make. I'll give you an example. Like, we grow a lot of basil at our facility, and we offset the tri-state area's basil consumption through two different distributors. And both of these distributors used to fly their basil in from Hawaii twice a week. And just imagine the food miles and the impact we're making. It's a small impact by far, but I think if people took inspiration, if we can do it in Toledo, Ohio, people can do it in hundreds of other cities across the U.S. And that combined movement, I think, is what's needed.
It's so beautiful, and it's so important to really capitalize on these things that not only make you different, but make you helpful to the world.
Any small piece that can be done, I think we should do it, even if it seems minimal.
Oh, 100%.
Step in the right direction.
100%. And it's not a small thing. You're doing a very big thing. If you completely got rid of those Hawaii miles, it's a bigger thing than you think.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one produce line. We grow several dozen SKUs in the farm, and it's been great. You meet a lot more people in that way. We love all the other restaurateurs that we work with, no matter what market we're in. We meet a lot of really great people in this industry, and even if we don't work with them directly, just being part of that community, being part of that culinary community is awesome.
So what is the culinary community like in Ohio? I mean, I've been there a few times. I love Ohio. I went to school in Illinois, so I wasn't that far away, but I think Ohio is really a burgeoning market that people kind of overlook.
It is, definitely. And you've got the big 3 Cs in Ohio: Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati. We're based in Toledo. And Toledo is definitely not it's not a huge market, but I tell people all the time, there isn't a lot to do. And so going out to eat is both entertainment and fulfillment, right? And people eat out a lot in Toledo. There's so many restaurants. It's kind of amazing. It's a great community. We've learned a lot, especially from someone who didn't grow up in the restaurant industry. I've had several mentors through the years who have just stepped up to provide their insight, provide their guidance, and be somebody that we can learn from. And some are still around. Some, unfortunately, have passed away through the years, but they definitely left their impact.
This is such a beautiful story. I just feel so inspired to go make a garden right now. I'm just I feel I want to go to Balance Grill. First of all, I feel I need to travel to one. I will go
Absolutely, you
fly to a
definitely should.
balanced grill.
Oh man, well I've done my part then. That's awesome. Let me know if you do. I'd love to meet you out there.
Yes, of course. And you're in Toledo, so I'll have to fly to Toledo.
Yes, I'm based in Toledo, but happy to meet you where you're at.
Well, I'd love to see the garden. That I feel like that's just such a beautiful aspect of this brand, and what a like way to say we're here for the community, we're here for the world. And I feel like as you grow and expand, and now you're going to Texas, that can only produce more of an impact everywhere you go. And it's going to exponentially show the world that you're here, you're a brand that wants to take care of everyone, and that you're here to really make a mark.
I appreciate it. Thank you. That is like an amazing compliment. And I hope we continue to live up to it.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today, PK. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.